Hey everybody, this is Sheets, and we're going to be going over the UFC Mexico card for tomorrow evening. Actually, start time is 4 p.m., so it's a very nice, manageable uh, slate for viewing purposes. And again, I've been very, very swamped for several weeks, it seems, uh, and haven't really had the time to put up both a DFS slate preview and a lineup construction video. I'm hoping to be able to do both of those things today. Um, the DFS, just the regular, best plays preview today, and probably the lineup construction video is going to come out later tonight or first thing in the morning, but I doubt it. So if I can do it at all, it's going to be later this evening. Nonetheless, I think that this card is extremely straightforward with respect to who the best plays are and the best fights to target. Um, the other thing I think about this card is that it's not going to be particularly high scoring. That's just my instinct. Not even my instinct. That's my analysis of some of these fights. There's one mid-range fight that rates the score really well, but the other mid-range fights look to be pretty, I don't know, pretty pedestrian. And I don't know. I just have this feeling that the overall scoring on the slate is not going to be particularly big, which means that this main event, it's tempting to want to fade it, but I don't know if you can get away with it. I'd love to do it. I really would. I'd love to fade this main event. I think that there are a lot of variations where this turns into a very boring striking battle between Urseg and Moreno, where the winner scores 85, 90 points, but there's just so little in the mid range to compete with it, with the exception of the Dober Torres fight, which obviously we're going to deal with. But I don't know. Listen, at the end of the day, you know how I roll, and I am going to fade it. Probably more than I should. The main event, just because I would really like to make sure I'm have as many uniques as possible, because again, that's the disease I have with playing UFC. I'm completely on the hunt to win this full 100K, and I don't care about lineups that don't have a chance to do that. It's probably not exactly the right way to play, and compared to the way I play all the other DFS sports, it's completely different. But nonetheless, that's the way I deal with actual lineup construction, which is why I do like to separate these videos. People that actually want to play like a reasonable person can really gain a lot from this particular video, because I am going to go over who the best plays are. And then when it comes down to actually playing them, I'll probably end up not even doing it. But we'll see. So, like, for example, I mean, let's just get right to it. The best thing that you can do on this slate for so many reasons is to lock in this Manuel Torres Drew Dober fight. It has everything that you want in DFS, sort of. I mean, the only thing it doesn't have is low ownership, but you have perfect pricing, like 8,200 to 8K, and it's a looks to be a very binary outcome. Like whoever wins this fight is going to score a ton. I mean, you look at these inside the distance lines for 8,200 8K. You have both of them right around pick'em to finish. I mean, the overall inside the distance line on the fight is like minus 700. So what this pricing can do for the rest of your lineup, plus the fact that it's going to score well, it's just basically DFS nirvana. And if you play one lineup, you can pick one of them at random. I mean, really, if you play two lineups, you should definitely play one of each. And I think that no matter how many lineups you play, you're supposed to play 100% of them. You just are. I mean, even if the fight busts somehow, I mean, what's the worst these guys can score in a win? I mean, I can't even imagine what's the variation where these guys don't score 100. Maybe Dober goes for takedowns and gets them and doesn't do much with them, and gets an 85 or something. I mean, I think that's literally the floor in a win here is 85 points. And at this price, I just think that most often they're going to score 100. They're going to get after it, and someone's going to lose in the first round. I just think that's what's going to be. But so I don't think it matters how many lineups you play. You're supposed to play both sides of this fight. I don't think you're supposed to take a stand one way or the other. I think that's asking for it. And if both fighters are 35-40% owned, I don't think it matters. I really don't. Now, when it comes to taking down the GPP by itself, you probably can't lock it in just because of the popularity. I don't know how well it's going to sim, but I still think that maybe you should anyway. I mean, maybe you're just supposed to get different in some other fight somehow. Maybe you lock in the Torres Dober fight and full fade the main, something like that. I mean, that's something you could do. You know, that's a way you could do what you're supposed to do with the Torres Dober fight and still have a chance to win, a lot of money. So, as I alluded to several times, I mean, like Moreno Urseg 5-round fight, which I think does have danger of busting. Moreno's at home. He's got the Mexican crowd behind him. And I don't know, I guess for whatever reason, going to the wrestling game is not particularly, it's the way I'm saying this, particularly Mexican or particularly masculine, if there is such a thing. That if you can get away with winning, staying on the feet, there's this perception, I guess, that you're, I don't know, that you're more manly in some way. So I think that Moreno, similar to his last fight, he's very live to just keep this thing on the feet and cruise. At least from a game plan perspective. Now, Urseg is not bad, and I do think there's a certain amount of recency bias built into this line here and built into this perception that the perception that Urseg might sort of be a fraud because when he finally stepped up in his last two fights, he lost. Especially his last fight, he got just torched by Kai Kara France. So I do think that the side, if there is such a thing as Urseg, and can you fade this? I guess you could. I'll say this. How about this? If you play the main event and this Manuel Torres Dober fight, then you probably really need to get different somewhere else because both these fights are going to get pretty well checked. So what does that mean? To summarize, I think that the fight on most cards you could probably fade, but I think because I think this could be a low-scoring slate, it's just going to be a tough one to fade. So in big buy-ins, really, you're supposed to play someone from the main event. You're supposed to play someone from the Torres fight. And then I do think that there is a pretty healthy standout with respect to the favorites. The big favorites, actually, there are two, but one I think is just clearly the best, and that is Raul Rosas Jr. I mean, he has everything going for me. He's minus 500 for openers. Not to mention, he also has just an incredible amount of grappling upside. His inside the distance line is not the greatest, just because again he's got all this grappling upside. He could win. He could rack up a ton of points without getting a finish. He hasn't really done that yet. He hasn't written out a 3-round decision and scoring 130 points or something. But I think the combination of his finishing instincts, his grappling, plus I think his criminally low price of what is this? Is he really only 9,100? I can't. Where I can't find him. Why can't I find him? I mean, he's 9,200, and that's just. I just think that's really, really cheap here. So I think he's clearly the best favorite. right, so you start your lineups with something like even like the three most popular. These the three most popular fighters? Well, I don't know the difference between Torres and Dober. I don't know who's going to be more popular. Moreno, Rosas. This is probably the way you're supposed to start your lineups. Some version of Moreno, Urseg, some version of Torres, Dober, and Rosas. I think that's pretty clear. But in order, I guess my next best favorite has got to be Jamal Emmers, and which is kind of bizarre to say because he's not really like a finisher, like he won. He lost. Well, this fight against Jenkins was a colossal joke. I mean, he won this fight clearly, and they just didn't give him the W. But even if they did give him the W, if you look at it, even if they give him the win, it's only 79. Here, a win is 72. The bazooka win was the outlier here. So I don't know. Maybe this is a bad play. The problem here is that Miranda, he can give up takedowns. I don't know. I just let's compare him to some of the others, I guess. When I first looked at it, I thought Emmer was going to be a pretty good favorite, 9,100. But again, you throw that bazooka fight out, he would look like the worst play on the board. I mean, honestly. And then you look at some of these other favorites; they're like really expensive. Like Rafa Garcia, got this KO here, but he's again a guy that doesn't really score all that much. I mean, who died and left him 9,500? It's probably just because of his win odds. Yeah, I mean he's minus 500, but what's his inside the distance line? It's plus 300. I mean, it's ridiculous. So he doesn't look that good. See some of these other favorites. You have okay, so Joe Piper. This can't be bad, right? When he wins, he gets it done early. He scores decently and wins, but even him, I mean, 100, 106, 96, 97. I guess that's good enough. He also did have three takedowns against Al Razak Hassan, but even that, look at this, doesn't put up a lot of volume. I mean, I guess it's just about as good as Emmers. So yeah, Piper's good enough. What about David Martinez? We'll take a look at his inside the distance line here. I mean, the minus 450. I mean, this is all really good, but you look at this. I guess this is fine. Plus 110, I guess. But at his price, I mean, that's terrible. So, no good. Then you have Edgar Shirez at 9K. Well, we'll get back to him. But let's look at Gautier, because at least he's got a good inside the distance line. He's got a ridiculous price tag. And we're going to have a problem here in a second because we analyze the styles here. Let's just take a look at the inside the distance line. Where are you, Gautier? I don't even know where it is. Oh, there it is. So he's minus 400, but you look at his inside the distance line, he is. So he's minus 150 inside. So this is the only guy that has an inside the distance line that's better than minus 110. And he has been priced up. I mean, 9,600, that's so big. But let's look at his round one prop, maybe. Maybe that looks good enough. Gautier round one is plus 200. Right, that's reasonable. But the problem here is going to be that his opponent is going to be going for wrestling. I mean, that's his only hope. And we've seen these big athletic fighters with no experience come on into the UFC and not have the greatest takedown defense. So it's possible that Medina can get like a round of takedown and top control, or control at least, which is going to make Gaudier covering 9,600 really difficult. So um, another favorite, which is just pretty bad relative to this price, which is again why I'm reiterating how low scoring I think this card is going to be, which is why that Dober fight is just such a lock, and why this main event is so hard to fade, and why I really do think that Rosas is clearly the best favorite here. Right, Edgar Shirez. I mean, I'm going to throw these fights against Daniel Lacerda De Silva out. I mean, because that's all that guy does is generate fantasy points. He did get he got a knockdown and a reversal against Tyra. I mean, it's not bad. And he hung in there with Joshua Van. I guess that's not bad. CJ Vergara, he's another one that got a win over Lacerda. And he also fought Tyra. Let's take a look at least. We're trying to find something aside from Rosas that's playable as far as these favorites go. Otherwise, we're just going to be making these big mid-range builds. So we have. Let's take a look at it. Sorry about this. I'm just having trouble navigating. So Shirez inside the distance. Okay, plus 140. But again, at 9K, you just want a little better than that. But again, compared to all these others, I mean, maybe Shirez is not that bad. But I don't know. So we've been through like all of the 9K and up fighters, and the only guy that we really like is Rosas. I mean, honest. So if that's the case, then you're probably going to want to build from these other mid-range guys. So let's talk about some of them. You have Here are the fights. You have the Medeiros Hubbard fight. You have the Godinez Palastri fight. You have the C-Rod Costa fight, and then there's one other, and the Rodriguez Borges fight. Like those are the mid-range fights that we're going to have to probably choose from. And they're not great, but at least you're not paying 95, 9,600 for guys with like just terrible inside the distance lines. I think that of these mid-range fights, oh boy, which is my favorite? I mean, Lupe Godinez does have ceiling. Like if she fights this fight like she had against Elise Reed, obviously, that looks really good. Or this one against Carnelosi. I mean, she has these results in her, and she has a skill set that she can generate ceiling. She can get a lot of takedowns if she wants them, and if the fight calls for them. Sometimes she just doesn't do it though. Sometimes she can't do it. Again, listen, against Jandiroba, she had a grappling disadvantage, so she had a problem there. Mackenzie Dern, she did get 2 takedowns. But it just wasn't enough against her. She did win a very, very nice striking battle against Tabitha Ritchie, but 70 fantasy points is not going to do it. So you're getting some results that you want and some that you don't, and it's weird. I think that on this slate, though, I think you're going to have to take a shot. I think that any possibility for ceiling is one that you can't ignore here. So I do think Loopy is probably a very strong. I would say mid range. She's a cross between mid range and high priced. I don't like the Pilastri side at all. Like I don't know how she wins. And the thing is, I don't know how she wins. I know she's going to win. just win a striking battle somehow. Um, I really don't know how she, but I will say this: if she does, I'm not worried about her scoring, and I don't think Godinez is going to be particularly popular, so you're not getting leverage either. Um, so what do you have? Just three more fights to talk about? Really? And we have the Medeiros fight, and we have the Costa fight. Really, right? We talked about Maine, we talked about Pfeiffer, we talked about this Martinez fight, which is bad. Talked about the Shirez fight. Talked about Gautier. Now it should go without saying that I don't like these underdogs at like plus 500. You know, they just don't win often enough. The underdogs are going to have to come from these kind of like mid-range kind of fights like this. Okay, let's look at Austin Hubbard versus Medeiros, like for example. Okay, so Medeiros is only a minus 160 favorite. Okay, so if that's the case, I mean, you have Hubbard at 7,500. Just on money line value is probably worth playing. You know, and with these types of underdogs, this is really all that you're going to need on this particular slate because it's not going to be that high scoring. You just have to be able to get to what you need. And fortunately, you don't need these big favorites. So you don't need to punt down to 7,200, 7,100 and play these plus 400s. You can get away with playing someone like Austin Hubbard so that you can build, you know, the rest of your lineups with these better plays. Uh, so do I really care what Hubbard's upside is? I mean, not really. The other side of it, Medeiros like plus 300 inside, just no good. Um, and is this the last we have to deal with? Yeah, I guess so. So Christian Rodriguez against Melise Costa. Um, actually, there are two, right? Right. I'm sorry, Borjas Rodriguez and Rodriguez Costa. So these are the two fights I think that you're just going to have to hold your nose and kind of play, even though the metrics are not great. Um, because again, you want to get to those mid-range fights, those upper mid-range fights. Uh, and these are the ways you have to do it. Now, let's take a look at some of these. So the good thing about the Rodriguez Borjas fight is that I think that Rodriguez, if he wins, it's going to be because he got his grappling going, and he's only minus 140 to win anyway. I'd say almost, you know, only minus 140. Let's take a look at his price. I mean, he's 8,500, so it's not the greatest money line. But if he wins, I think there's some ceiling in here. That's the best way to describe it. So it's similar in a way to the Godinez play, but here you're saving 400. So I do like him. Borjas on the other side, he just doesn't. I don't know. I think he's underrated. I think he can get in there. So he maybe doesn't have a great ceiling, but again, it's really not what we're looking for in these types of plays to round out your lineup. So I think you should shuffle him, you know, alongside of like Austin Hubbard in these kind of mid-range, you know, mid-range underdogs. And I'm not saying you play this exact lineup, but like these are what they're kind of gonna look like. You know, you play these kind of like Hubbard, Borjas. Hope they win and get you 65 points, and it might be good enough in big buy-ins. And then what were the last two? I talked about Borjas, talked about Hubbard, and then this C-Rod fight. So there's this perception that C-Rod is kind of where fantasy points go to die. He beats all these prospects, and it looks as though he takes the cover, you know, he takes the air out of the ball, so to speak, and doesn't allow too many fantasy points. But I think I think it's sort of an illusion. Um, remember against Rojas, I mean he certainly could have given up 120 points if he submitted in the first round, But then he just kind of came back and he got 71 fantasy points basically in 2 rounds. You know? So that's not bad. 90 here. Bulgarian, this was kind of a weird fight. Then he just got, I don't know what happened here. And then these types of results are pretty interesting when you can get 2 takedowns and 2 reversals and stuff. Remember, when you're not looking for all that much on this card, I think he's kind of decent. And remember, when you have Moreno and Torres like right around his price tag, that are obviously going to project a lot better, probably getting low ownership on C-Rod. So I think it's definitely worth it. And Costa, you have to respect this, right? Win by sub, 100 points, 7,800. This is the type of guy you're just going to have to, accept, like on this type of card. So I think he's even better, for example, than Borjas. So like something like this could be, we can't quite get to this. Like these are the types of lineups you're going to see, I think, in big buy-ins. And you could, well, you know what? You don't like Torres? Go ahead. You want to save the money? Boom. Something like this. Maybe not, Godinez. Maybe instead of Godinez, people play C-Rod. Or you know what they'll do? This one. Ready? They're going to do this. That's what they're going to do. Something like that. And then, see, this is the problem. You don't have to play Costa. So you can mess around a little bit. Anyway, that's my view of this slate. We're gonna do a lineup construction video later tonight where we run the sims and kind of screw everything up. But if you didn't want to do that, if you really wanted to play solid, you'll play Rosas probably. You'll play someone from Dober Torres. You'll play someone from Moreno Urseg, and then you'll shuffle. I mean, that's probably what you're supposed to do. But we'll see what I actually do when I do the lineup construction video later. And that'll do it. Good luck, everybody.